I think we forget a lot of times, like, we're human and she has feelings, and, you know, there's moments that are really
The
hard.
arena lights come up. The crowd is packed. And before a single basket is scored, before the ball even leaves anyone's hands, the boos begin. Not for the visiting team, not for a referee, for the head coach of a home team, standing on her own court, in her own city, in front of her own fans. This is Indiana. This is Gainbridge Fieldhouse. And this is the night Stephanie White walked into a storm she didn't create, but had to face anyway. To understand how we got here, we have to rewind 3 days. The Indiana Fever are playing the Chicago Sky. The game is tight. And then, in one violent second, everything changes. Sky guard DiJonai Carrington goes up for a foul against Fever guard Sophie Cunningham, and the contact lands high, near the neck. It's ruled a flagrant. Carrington is ejected on the spot. In the raw, chaotic moments right after, cameras find coach Stephanie White. She's asked about the foul, and her answer, calm, measured, almost too composed for the moment, becomes the spark that lights the fire. She says the officials made the right call, but she also says she doesn't believe it was intentional. She reminds people that Carrington played for her in Connecticut, that she knows her competitive spirit. It's a nuanced answer, a coach trying to be fair to a former player while still standing behind the call. But nuance doesn't survive online for long. Within hours, a firestorm builds. A post begins circulating, 2 words that ignite outrage across social media: white privilege. The phrase attaches itself to Stephanie White's name and refuses to let go. Suddenly, this isn't about a foul anymore. It's about race. It's about loyalty. It's about whether a coach chose a former player over her own locker room. And then, from a place nobody expected, the outrage climbs even higher. Indiana's own Lieutenant Governor, Micah Beckwith, posts publicly, calling for White to be fired. A sitting political figure, wading into a professional sports controversy, demanding a coach lose her job over 11 words spoken in a hallway. By the time the Fever take the court again, 2 days later, against the New York Liberty, the temperature hasn't dropped. It's spiked. Stephanie White walks out for her pre-game press conference knowing exactly what's waiting for her. And instead of avoiding it, she meets it head-on. She tells the room she hadn't even seen a replay of the foul when she gave her first answer. She says the backlash isn't really about people in that room, it's about an online audience determined to build a story that isn't true. She says player safety, player wellness, has always been her priority, that her relationships with her players are something she takes pride in. It's a defiant, emotional stand. But words in a press conference can only do so much. Because minutes later, when White walks out for tip-off in front of her own fans, the boos start raining down. Imagine that for a second. You've given years to a franchise. You've helped build something. And the people cheering for your team turn on you before the game has even begun. Somewhere in that arena, one player is watching all of it, and she's furious. Caitlin Clark isn't just the best player on this team. She's the most scrutinized athlete in the sport right now. And she knows exactly what it feels like to have the internet turn a single moment into a permanent narrative. So when she hears her own fans boo her coach, something in her locks in. She had already spoken to White earlier that day, before any of this played out publicly. And in that private conversation, Clark made herself clear. There was no version of this game where the Fever were losing, not for themselves, not for the record, but for her. Then the ball goes up, and Indiana doesn't just win. They dominate, 106-92, a statement delivered in real time on the same court where the boos had just echoed. But the real moment comes after the final buzzer. Caitlin Clark steps to the microphone, and instead of talking about her stat line, she talks about her coach. She says hearing the fans boo White before tip-off made her sick to her stomach. She says professional sports means criticism is part of the job, but that doesn't mean her team turns on their own. She says the locker room stays unified no matter what noise is happening outside of it. And then she says something that cuts even deeper than loyalty. She says she understands, personally, what it's like to have the internet decide who you are before you get a chance to explain yourself. She talks about the days it's gotten to her too, the days the thick skin cracks, just a little. She says she told White exactly that earlier in the day, "You're not alone in this." Clark takes it one step further, delivering what might be the most pointed line of the entire night. She says the world seems to love division right now, that instead of wanting to see people succeed, there's a hunger to tear them down. And she says watching that happen to someone she respects is genuinely painful for her to witness. It's not just a player defending a coach. It's one of the most visible athletes on the planet naming, out loud, the exact machine that's been grinding both of them down. Sophie Cunningham, the very player at the center of the original foul, backs it all up. She says her relationship with White is strong, that the outside noise hasn't cracked what's inside that locker room. She reminds everyone that White hadn't even seen a replay when she first spoke. She defends Carrington too, calling her a fierce competitor and a great defender, saying the benefit of a doubt was fair to give. So where does that leave us? A coach publicly shamed before a single point was scored. A political figure calling for her job over a nuanced comment. A superstar player standing in the fire beside her, refusing to let the noise win. And a team that answered every bit of doubt with 14 points and a message louder than any boo in that building. The scoreboard says Fever 106, Liberty 92. But the real story isn't the final score. It's what happens when the outside world tries to tear a team apart, and the people inside it decide, together, that they won't let it.